Hi, everyone. This is Lucas and Sandra from Qiqo Chat. We're joined by Devin and Christina from the Landscape Architecture Foundation, who had a very fun event last week on Qiqo Chat, and we invited them onto the show here to explain to us their journey onboarding onto Qiqo and some of their lessons learned to share knowledge with other facilitators here. So Christina, I'll turn it over to you. And the first question we have is, what was the event that you held and what were your goals for the event?
Sure, thanks so much, Lucas. So the event that we had was, the name of it was LAF's 35th Annual Benefit, an Out of the Ordinary Evening. The event was a replacement for what was meant to be an in-person event. Every year we have a big annual benefit, and the in-person event draws about 500 to 600 people, and it's as a nonprofit, it's our single largest fundraising event of the year. So both through sponsorships and through ticket sales. And so we were looking to reprogram the in-person event to something that could be held in a virtual format. It was really important to us. We had already secured almost $200,000 in sponsorship revenue from January to March, when we thought that we were going to have this in-person event. And so it was important to us to have something so that we could retain that revenue. It was important to us also to bring people together, right? As a Landscape Architecture Foundation, we work predominantly with landscape architects and other people who work to support that discipline. And so it's a very cordial group. People really benefit from the opportunity to come together in person and, excuse me, and it just sort of build that sense of camaraderie. And so, we sort of weighed some options about, should it be a lecture format? Should we do a type of webinar or something like that? But ultimately decided that, really to replace the benefit, that one of the big objectives of that was to have fun. And so what we tried to do in the reimagined event was to take the best of our in-person event, right? Which is the opportunity to come together, to see friends, to build relationships while raising money to support the work that our organization does. And we wanted to merge it with the unique opportunities of this moment, which we really saw as, we talked a lot about how people have been let into one another's worlds in really interesting ways through all of the time that we spend on Zoom calls and that sort of thing. And so we were looking at that as, well, can we take that a step further? Can we really like sort of crack that open? And, we talked about the sort of the flattening of the hierarchies when we're all reduced to these little squares on the screen, as a great way to bring people together in a way that they wouldn't normally get to connect with one another or engage with one another if they were at an in-person event. So think about that as, you might know somebody and you've seen them 10 years at a conference, but did you know that they have a cat who's going to walk across the screen at any moment? Or that their hobby is vintage cars, or that they can whip up a mean cocktail. And so that became sort of the nexus for the event.
Excellent. Well, I'm wondering if, Devin, can you show us what the event looked like? And Christina, can you talk us through the format? So how did it start? What happened in the middle? How did it end?
Absolutely. Let me show it. All right. I'm sharing my screen. Can everybody see that?
Yes, looks good.
Yep.
All right. So this is our homepage where everybody RSVP'd, and what I really liked about this was one of the first things I learned to customize through Qiqo Chat, and I thought it was very useful. And this part right here with the little graphic that can be filled with text or images or PDFs or what have you, and I really like that. But I'll enter the event and let Christina go on.
Thanks, Devin. So the first thing, everybody entered and they came into the main stage. It's what we called the first space that we had created and the first Zoom session that everybody joined. This is where we had the opening remarks. So another thing that we wanted to carry from the in-person event to the virtual event was the opportunity to sort of report out on, we call it sort of like a state of LAS, if you will, to let people know what their donations have made possible in the past year and sort of a look ahead to the year to come. And so that's what we used the main stage for. Again, we really wanted to replicate that sense of, you know, hundreds of people being together in the same room to create that energy. And that's what, you know, this works perfectly for that. We had our CEO and then our president-elect and past president take turns sort of providing some little report outs on different accomplishments that people's support helped to make possible. On the right-hand side of the page here, we have our event program. This went out to attendees in an email ahead of time, but it was really nice that we could also embed it in the platform here, you know, in case people lost that email or didn't want to sort of fumble with pulling it up here. And so, Devin, if you want to scroll through the event program a little bit. So we had the welcome from our CEO. And then we had the high-level overview of the evening schedule. So you can see doors opening remarks, and then really laying out the foundation for the rest of the evening. So we had 3 rounds of hosted rooms with 7 rooms per round. And so if you want to keep going, then here's where we get into the detail of each round. So we have the headshot for the host, you know, their organization, affiliation, and then what the name of their room, as well as a description of what would be going on in the room. And so we did this for each round.
What were some examples of what happened in the rooms?
Sure. So it really like ran the gamut here, from everything from straightforward concepts that didn't require a lot of technology, right? Really just people wanting to, so the prompts that let me back up and say the prompts that we gave our hosts was, given the opportunity, what do you want to bring people together around? And we really left it up to our hosts to determine what that was. And so some people, one of the rooms that we had was somebody who wanted to have a conversation around movement during the pandemic, and movement in terms of the opposite of movement, stillness, to geographical movement, to psychological, to physical movement. So that was simply a conversation that people could, you know, have face-to-face through the Zoom platform. Other people wanted to have fun, and there was a game of Pictionary, there was a game of trivia. Somebody wanted to sing karaoke. We sort of put that idea out there as I don't know, just sort of in jest. And then someone was like, oh no, actually I want to do that. And so we had a karaoke room. One of our event sponsors actually brought in a live band. And so they had a live band perform through, you know, and everybody could be there through Zoom. Devin, if you want to scroll up, there's a couple more. Oh, we had somebody who, again, another idea that we had thrown up there sort of in jest that somebody took us up on was to make cocktails. And so this individual had this sort of straight on shot, so we could see him and his wife in his kitchen mixing a variety of cocktails. And then they took it a step further and had an overhead camera, so we were looking down at his hands as he made cocktails. And that was, you know, really designed to be an activity that people could follow along with, people could just observe and maybe learn something new, but also a little bit of a sort of like a passive activity that if people wanted to sort of delve into a conversation about something that was more, you know, related to the profession or something like that, that it would allow for that. We had people do, you know, a houseplant show and tell. We had people who sort of brought together their pets to showcase the people and the creatures that were keeping them company during the pandemic. So a pretty wide spectrum of things. We had 21 hosts, and they each brought to it their own creativity. That's
super. Oh, Sandra, go ahead.
So while you're speaking about these really fun, diverse, creative rooms, what do you think were some of the challenges that you faced in hosting them or organizing them? What do you think were some of the smoother processes that helped you in the overall process?
So I think, I mean, some of the challenges, you know, it was a lot of time to coordinate with 21 different people, and to work with them to try to make sure that their concept would work for the virtual format. And honestly, I'm not just saying this, I've said this 100 times, that's where you both really came into play and were really helpful for us there, because you guys do this day in and day out and have a better sense of the tools that people can have at their disposal, and just sort of what other limitations or things like that we should think about. So that took a bit of work. You know, finding the technology for things like to make karaoke work, you know, that took some time. But what I would say, I think coming away from it, one of the things that if we were to do this again, I would really think about was how we grouped those rooms. I think one of my biggest fears going into it was, oh no, like I really wanted our hosts to have a good time. I wanted our hosts to feel like their time was really well valued, and that you know, people went into each room, because we did encourage attendees. So each room was open for 45 minutes, and we encouraged attendees to sort of pop through a variety of rooms if they wanted. You know, if they had found the space for them and they wanted to plop down for 45 minutes, that was okay too. But we did have some rooms that only had a couple of people in them. You know, for example, the room block where there was the live band, as you know, a majority of people flocked to that. And then some of the other rooms that were a little bit more focused on the conversation didn't have as much of a draw. And so when I did this for this event, I wanted to create sort of a balance between each block, knowing that, or thinking that, you know, I don't know what's going to attract somebody. You know, somebody might have come to this for the live music, or somebody might say, you know what, I really love vintage cars, and I want to sort of nerd out with other landscape architects on vintage cars. And to some extent that was true, but there definitely were some rooms that didn't have as much traffic, and I think that in part that was because of the competition that they had during that block. So I would say that was a challenge. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think that was it. I don't know if anything comes to mind for you, Devin, but you know, I think just a lot of time.
Yeah, I would say the time for amassing hosts and getting our graphics ready and whatnot, that was the biggest challenge. But I think one of the things that really excelled for me with this platform is how easy it was to update everything on the fly. So like if we had someone, if we had a host that had to change his he had to change his concept the day of or the day before, and it was really easy to change his tabs in his room. So these tabs up here, program, passport, and auction, like it was easy to update those and put in new graphics, as well as put images on an online host. That was very useful. I understand that's a little more back end, but it's super useful for someone who like wants to embed a PDF but doesn't have an online host for it on their own website or something. Qiqo is a good place for you to do that. And there's a lot of those easy tools that were easy to incorporate things as the event went live, or like if we wanted to just see how something looked, it was very easy to add in those new things, as well as, I don't know, the customization was very useful throughout the planning process and the day of.
Why don't, Devin, do you want to take us to the spoken word room so you could see an example of?
Yes.
It was so much fun to watch the people flow through the space that evening.
Oh, do you remember what studio?
It's in the second wise word, Studio 9. Yeah.
Studio 9, got it.
Yeah. So every room, the first thing that people saw was this program this one-page PDF that we have here that showed who the room hosts were, what the name of the room was, and then a little description. And we also then used it as an opportunity to include, like, you know, is there anything that people need to know if they're coming into your room sort of like 15 minutes into the start of the block. So for, you know, Pictionary or something like that, that could have been the rules of the game. A lot of the rooms though didn't really take too much explanation, but this was an idea that Sandra had for us as a way to keep the proportion of instruction to what we called like play or activity in balance, so that people weren't feeling like, you know, half the time was spent explaining to new people what it is they needed to know to be able to participate. So that's what this sort of one-page PDF here served as. And then Arsmer in this instance is not from within the profession. It's somebody that our host Rebecca brought in, and she is a spoken word poet. And so we had the opportunity to embed her webpage here so that people who liked what they were hearing could be in touch with her. Oh no, is it not up anymore?
Yeah, I would say it was embedded night of.
Why don't you try the live band then, which is in the same block here, I think.
Yeah.
There you go, Studio 12.
There we go.
There we go. So for this example, you know, same idea. The live band that performed, we were able to link to the musician's website so that he was able to get some traffic. People could, you know, find out more information, that sort of thing.
Fantastic. Yeah. One more question comes to mind to both Devin and Christina. Did anything surprise you about the process of planning or all the communication with your hosts, or about the participant experience? Anything just, oh, I didn't expect that.
I don't know that anything surprised me. You know, again, I think just sort of the amount of time that it took to pull together was maybe more than I anticipated, but I think maybe I just hadn't fully thought that through. You know, it wasn't so much of a surprise, just the reality of doing something like this. I don't know. I was just pleasantly surprised by the hosts and the creativity that they brought to this, and their willingness to go along with the concept and to let people into their spaces. And Yeah, I think we're still waiting. We sent a post-event survey out to the attendees, and it closes later today, so we don't have the results of that yet. But anecdotally, we've heard from some people like, this was just what I needed. Thank you so much for doing something that was fun. It was so great to connect with people over these various things. And so I hope that we hear more of that. I hope the survey reflects that as well. So yeah, I think people's willingness to sort of just go along with this concept for us. So.
I'll follow up with that and say what you did at the Landscape Architecture Foundation for your hosts, I thought was going above and beyond the call of duty, in that you gave them each an individual orientation to the platform for 30 minutes, sometimes longer, because the hosts are luminaries in the field of landscape architecture, and you wanted to make sure that they look good. So your level of attention to detail and opening up your schedule to them, I saw firsthand, Sandra saw firsthand, that they felt like they were cared for. And that came out in the level of effort that they put in to design, such as the overhead camera when preparing all the drinks and all that thought that went into these sessions. So I was surprised that we normally just see you have 2 demos for hosts, half an hour here, half an hour here, and they come and you hope they come and they can get an orientation. Otherwise, they're on their own. But you made sure that everyone got an orientation. And I think part of it was because your event was more creative than the average event, which is more like a conversation and discussion and brainstorming together. But it was every different room had different activities, and you wanted to fully think through how that worked online. So I give you a lot of credit. That's why it took so much time. It's because you chose to really do well for your hosts. And I liked your style for that. Sandra.
Yeah, I'll definitely dovetail on that and express, Lucas made a comment the other day, which was a great comment related to LAF, and what you did is events. People don't realize the amount of work that go into certain events, because when they go off really well, everyone's having fun. So the level of thought and care that you poured into this, I think, even though, say, it didn't draw in the hundreds of people, each person that you did draw in and touch, it was that 120, 150, 200+% value that I believe you let each person walk away with, because you allowed them to have a very different evening, a very different experience online, that it takes that extra level of thought and care to think through. And it's just like in any other event planner's challenge, is to go, how can we do this event and make it fun for everybody, and make it go without a hitch or without any problems.
Yeah.
Total number of participants.
Thank you. And that, what were you going to say, Luke?
Oh, sorry to interrupt, Christina. I had a quick question. How many were the total number of participants that we saw at peak that evening? We
had 323 people register and about 220 who attended.
That's great.
So yeah, and I just want to say that I appreciate your comments that you both just made, and sort of the reminder that we did do these like little one-on-one sessions. And as an organization, I'll just say that we pride ourselves on excellent events. And that's, don't want to take all the credit for that. It's sort of like in our nature that if we're going to do something, we're going to really do it well. And Rachel, who's not here, plays a really big role in that for our in-person events. And so you're right, we did have this like standard that we knew we had to meet in the virtual setting. And I guess the other thing that I'll add is while this idea had sort of knocked around in our minds for, I don't know, I should look back, maybe like 5 to 7 weeks, but that it like really came together in about 3 weeks. And so that was another thing that I think certainly if we were to do this again, we could back everything up a little bit and give ourselves more time. And so the reason I mention that though is, I really wanted to use those one-on-one trainings as well. Like not just to get people familiar with Qiqo Chat, but also to use it as a time to talk through their concepts with them in case they had any questions. And I think had we had more time, I could have had those conversations myself, and then we could have done the group trainings on Qiqo Chat like you've done with other people, because certainly, you know, a majority of those concepts didn't need that one-on-one attention with the technology. There were a few, but in hindsight, or if we were to do it again, I would try to be a little bit more efficient with our time in that regard.
Yeah, and one other thing that I think kind of notice is that because you were facilitating or providing such high level service for your clients, which is your field, it's similar to how other organizers will work with their clients as well. And I think what I saw, at least in the exchange that you set the tone for, is by providing the one-on-ones, but by also providing individuals in your organization or in your field the space to do something special, that was where you also added value as a nonprofit organization giving back to your field. Is you gave them the space, individuals, to feel a part of the community that they're in. And I believe again, as an organizer or as a nonprofit organization, as a team, you really did provide more value to get the benefit for all these individuals to feel, because you gave that level of care. You gave them the space. It wasn't just, say, a benefit dinner and here we're all going to share a meal together. It was in a similar way. You were able to share a meal or share a moment together. That I believe as an nonprofit organization, you offer to your client, your clientele, that level of service that's very hard to do in this climate. So bravo.
Thank you.
Devin, we'll close out with one more question for you. So on Qiqo, the platform has grown quickly and we put most of our attention on the participant, what they see. So you dove into the back end, and the back end, we have some more iterations to make it even more user-friendly, like bringing in the place where you upload files and photos and bringing those together so it's more in one place. But just an open question of, if you had to do this again, what things would you like to see improved, or what friction would you like to see reduced? We're always trying to improve our platform based on your honest feedback.
Sure. I love the idea of bringing those together, like the place for the themes, and this will be for people who are on the platform, the place for themes, putting it somewhere similar will be really good. But another thing I would like to see, let me go into the edit here. And this, I was hesitant at the beginning of how this is set up, but I really came to like it towards the end of it, when I really started getting into it. So this spot right here is where I put in a lot of just custom HTML, which I found online and then adjusted myself. I really liked this bar, but I would like to see, or maybe have I don't know, not a guide, but like a list of things that I can update and customize, which after working with you, thankfully was everything I wanted to know, but just something off the top of my head, like these buttons for danger primary right here, like I found those by just toying around online, which is good, but you know, having this button hovered, like that was something I had to go on Google for, but it was super easy and to figure out, and working with y'all made it even easier. But just like maybe a guide of things that you can customize and like what to put in the CCS code or CSS code for that.
Fantastic. And you hadn't worked with CSS previously, have you?
No, I had taken an intro course online to HTML, but that was it.
Yeah. So yeah, that's one neat thing, is when people start putting their toe in the water and they're like, I'm going to Google this. And then they start pulling in other answers. So right now, if someone wants an advanced design, they're going to have to get some of our help, and then they're going to have to do some research like you did. But I think that's a perfect thing that we can do moving forward, so that it's easy. And it just says, if you want to edit this button, put the color in right here. If you want to edit this box, put the color in right here. And people don't have to go in, and we'll still have the custom CSS for people that want to go advanced, advanced, advanced. But great suggestion. We can definitely get that in.
And whoever's watching this on YouTube, like, it's really easy to find it on Google. Like the CSS, the hardest thing about it is the language, just where the brackets go, and the rest of it is pretty simple, and there's lots of good Google sites for it. So
super. And I'll say we also offer an hour free support for any event, just so you don't have to get up the learning curve by yourself. And we've got those open office hours, which we'll put in the link below the YouTube video. Christina, any closing thoughts that you'd like to add?
The only thing that comes to mind is just to make mention of the above and beyond. I know we paid for your support, but the above and beyond like level of attention that you gave to us in exchange for our dollars made everything worth it. We did look at some other platforms, and you go on and you start with the salesperson, and then they try to close, and I didn't get the sense that they didn't care about the success of our event, whereas I feel like the two of you were as committed to making it a success as we were, and so I really appreciated that, truly. Yeah.
And all credit for that on our team goes to Sandra, who was the project manager internally and has a big place in her heart for Landscape Architecture Foundation. So we strive to treat every customer that way. And thank you for saying that. It really makes our day.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you for your time today in this interview and sharing those lessons learned. And we look forward to staying in touch and seeing what else you do online. And for anyone else that has any questions that's watching this video, you can reach us hello@qiqochat.com, and we'll have some links below. I'll say goodbye, and we wish everyone a great day.
Thank you.
yes, thank you guys.